We're seeing works this evening from 1980 to 2009, and I want to make sure we talk about the music, the reconstruction process, and most importantly, the dancing. But I've been thinking we should go backwards in time, and let's start with the last piece because we still have the gorgeous backdrop. Carolyn, maybe you could talk to us a little bit. You started your role as choreographic assistant right as Trisha was starting to work in opera, and I was thinking about how that might relate to this last work. And if you could just talk to us a little bit about that work and how you think it led to this work that we saw tonight.
Trisha's relationship to opera started as early as 1986. She made Lena Wertmuller ask her to make Carmen in 1986. And so this history through Orfeo, the Venturizer, Dagello Agello, led into Hippolyte and Narcissi. And at first there was the idea of making an opera for Hippolyte and Narcissi, but it was 5 acts and it would have been about 100 people. So the divertissement was from the opera was what you saw tonight, from the prologue and Act 1 and Act 3 and Act 4. And Trisha has had this process before in Orfeo where she first constructed the dance that would be used in the larger opera, and that dance is canto pianto. And so this piece had its life first as a premiere, as a dance, and then instead of making Hippolyte and Narcissi, they decided to make the opera Pygmalion. But so Trisha made Pygmalion, but she also was so, her heart was just wrapped around making certain arias of Phaedra, which were contained in Hippolyte and Narcissi. So this dance and Pygmalion toured with Les Arts Florissants, William Christie conducting as an evening length work of 2 works, and Trisha added in the 3 arias of Phaedra and the Rossignol and an aria from, it's a lot of Temple Sacré for RC. And so it was sort of beautiful because when we got to X, we'd been working with many of the singers, but the divertissement was sung by singers, so they would be passing through the Cupid Rondeau and singing it live on stage. So it was exciting.
I was thinking, and we see it this evening, is that the company and Trisha lived through very different ideas about sound score, and so her investment in Baroque music we see, but then we also see her collaboration with the composer Dave Douglas in Groove and Countermove, and maybe Leah, you have that gorgeous opening duet. Could you say something about, the musical score is complicated in a different way from the final piece on the program. Could you talk about how it supports you or sometimes causes, something you're working against in the performing of it?
Well, just to say, Groove and Countermove was made before I joined the company, so I have been involved with it over some years. But I was one of the dancers to make L'Amour. So let's see, how do we relate to the music? I think with both pieces we're really riding with it. So in some of the other works, the music can be more of an environment for us, but I think in these these music cycles, the opera pieces and Groove, we're very much dancing to the music.
Could you say something about the reconstruction process for these 2 works? Because I know that the musical themes have been something that Diane Madden told us this afternoon in a Pillow Talk, that's something that you guys are interested in right now and exploring with the company is these musical ideas. Mm-hmm. So could you talk about how you're reconstructing them, and how you think the sound. So there's some sort of different periods of her life. So how it is to see them together.
It's wonderful to see them together, and I think just I wanted to say something earlier about the prairie. It's one thing whether we're working in silence or with music or with counting at times music. So you see Opal silence. Trisha had such a powerful sense of rhythm in her body, and often she would make a lot of material in silence, and it would find its home with music where I think it's most resonant together. But I think it's fair to say that we all hear a song, or there are so many visual connections to support how we stay together with or without music. It's sort of fascinating. But this reconstruction process was wonderful in that I think as this period, Trisha has such a tremendous family of alumni. And so it's been really amazing, this reconstruction, to have Leah Morrison with us the entire process, both teaching and dancing beautifully in groove. And we've had so many guest teachers, Stacy Spence and Sandra Grimberg, and in Lemoore with the partnering, it's really, you do have to have bodies teach it. You can't learn it from video. So we had so many teachers, Mindy Myers, Laurel Jenkins, Sam Wentz, Todd Stone. So there was this beautiful
That's kind of an oral history
sharing.
you're talking about of how these works are made, which I think then brings us to Opal Loop, the first piece on the program, and what a delight to see that work. And I think the great thing about it is we get a sense of the musicality and rhythm, even though it's in silence. So, Shelley, tell us what it was like when you got the phone call to say, "Hey, do you wanna dance in the company again?" It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I was very surprised, and so pleasantly surprised. I've been staging Trisha's work since I left the company in 1991, so I've been teaching it and staging it and remembering it in various sort of autobiographical and archival ways. So to be able to actually reconstruct it for the company and for these performances was just such an amazing opportunity. I felt so fortunate. And it was shortly before Trisha passed away, and we had already decided. We were already invited here. But became even more poignant, the idea of four of us who danced it so long ago, and I learned Trisha's role from Trisha, to be able to actually be in the studio together, putting it back together.
So one of the things when you look at the dates that the four of you were in the company, it's kind of like a baton handing down, right? Because
Yes.
people overlapped with each other, but all four of you did not dance in the company. So what's it like to sort of have this new company of the four of you with a shared history, but not necessarily at the same time?
What's it like? It's like being part of a tribe of people who all speak the same language. It was interesting because I knew what Opal Loop was one piece that I had not revisited over the years, so I knew I had to relearn it. And so one of the more current dancers happened to be in the same city that I was in, and we met for one day for her to teach me the actual phrase material, which I never learned. I had learned Trisha's role, but not the phrase material. And as
Could you explain the distinction between those two things?
Yes, the phrase material is the phrase. It's like a musical phrase of sequence of movements that are all put together as a melody, as a phrase. And then the process of the piece splices. Each person was you practice this material, and maybe Carolyn, you can help here. But you practice this material until it's second nature. Then Trisha sort of sets you free with certain improvisational instructions. So set and reset was a similar process as well, where you're dicing and splicing up the four phrases, moving through space in different ways, making appointments with other people. And so the roles are sort of, splices of these four phrases.
So learning the phrase work means you sort of went back to the basics before you started to rebuild the splicing.
Right.
So then we see the thing and maybe Leah, this is a question for you and to start with, and then I'll ask you, Carolyn, to come into it. So you were in the company after these dancers, and then you've been away, and then you've returned. What's it like for you to sort of see the embodied history of Brown's work performed by different generations? And do you see a different kind of moment in time?
Well, it's really touching to see it and to be a part of this performance, sharing the stage with these wonderful alumni and being inspired by watching them and really feeling that history. Now I've forgotten what your question is, but I just, what it brings to mind is with Trisha's passing, I think it's really kind of like hit me that we all like carry her in our bodies. So sharing that with every one of these people, even the dancers who are new and who have never met her perhaps, it's really powerful.
Do you want to say something about that? Because that you have been living this material since 1984. So that you have seen people entering the work with different kinds of training and histories in their body before arriving to the material, and what they're bringing to it is different depending on where they entered into the work. And could you just say something about what it's like for you to see the range of individuality in the dancing?
Wow. I actually woke up this morning and for some reason I was thinking about your question and thinking just by chance was really hit. I always am conscious of it, but through the generations of us who danced with Trisha on the stage or then worked with her in building her works, and there's this sure feeling that she is in our nervous system. I feel that everything I do she's here in us. And I've been feeling that it's been incredibly lucky to bring this current company into this situation to see Opal Loop, just to have that opportunity. And I feel that it's incredibly important to keep cycling all this incredible knowledge.
So this is a question about the dancing itself, that we see these works and we know that they were choreographed by Trisha Brown because of the particular movement sensibility of looseness and specificity and articulation. And so, and maybe this is best a question for you to start with, that you were in the company, you lived it and breathed it, and then you move away from it, and how is it to re-enter the specificity of the choreography and the improvisational practice? And does it carry into other realms of your life as well?
For one thing, in the company, and in a repertory company where you get to actually perform and practice performing it for quite often. In my day, we were touring and performing quite often, so it really gets deep into your bones. and starts to form them. It's almost like a DNA alteration that doesn't. That imprint doesn't go away. It really, when you practice, or if anybody repeats a movement over and over, it's fascinating how conscious repetition of anything, reading your favorite book, it becomes you. It's who you become. It wasn't so much about re-entering. It was a different kind of dimensional process of sort of just uncovering. Yeah.
How about for you, Leah?
Well, I only was away from the company for a few years, so there wasn't enough time to repattern. No, I definitely agree with Shelley that it really stays in your bones. Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
I seem to be answering your questions sort of sideways.
That's fine.
You had asked me about what it's like to see so many people, so many different people join, and I haven't been actively dancing since '95. I mean, I still move, but I actually hear that when you're watching movement, it is actually coming into your nervous system. So it's actually been a really big joy to watch so many people come into the company and work with them, just sitting with Trisha and working with them at times on the deck, the rehearsal floor. So I feel like my life is so rich from all the people that have joined the company over the time that I've been, well, it's like 33 years of beautiful dancers coming in and being committed and moving on when they need to, and
But coming home again. That's
coming home again.